unpredictable. Don't take risk, you can't afford to gamble. Secure yourself with social security. I said that. Social security, it good, you know.
Social security, it's good, you know. And we are here once more. Let me say good morning to you wherever you are at this time listening to DBS Radio. It surely is a pleasure to welcome you to another discussion with the Dominica Social Security. And of course, we have this discussion. It's a monthly discussion with the DSS. And we have guests in studio. So we are going to begin at this time. Let me welcome you. Let me also say good morning to you. Happy Thursday. It is May 29, and of course, it is a pleasure to be with you on this 5th Thursday in the month of May. And normally we are here on the 3rd Thursday in the month of May, but there are times when we have to flip the script and make changes to accommodate outside broadcasts or the events. And so we are here on May 29. May 29, that rings a bell. 46 years ago on that very day, the trajectory of Dominica's future changed. So a lot happened on the 29th of May. Well, there were activities leading up to the 29th, but May 29, the country went through what I would call a tumultuous period. But the discussion today is on social security, and we will stick to the agenda. The DSS is passionate about educating the public, and we are well happy that they are here. So let me go to Studio 2. Let's start off the discussion. We are running a little late, so let's not waste more time. Let me say good morning to our guests in studio. Let me start with the lady. She's no stranger, obviously. She has been around for quite a while, so she's used to this, right?
That's Trivona. Good morning to you. And good morning to the listeners of DBS Radio. We are happy as usual. We are very passionate about public education. And so we are happy to be here once again to educate the listening public about the Social Security Program.
I know they're familiar with your voice, but just tell us again
Okay, so my name is Kamasha Lloyd, and I am the Communications and Marketing Officer of the Dominica Social Security.
Okay, happy Thursday so far?
So far, so good.
Okay, I was mentioning just before we started off May 29. That was the activities leading up to May 29, and what happened after. It was a tumultuous period in Dominica's history. I guess you were not born as yet.
No, I wasn't,
right.
Ivona, but I've heard about it, and I can understand the situation.
Yes, okay. But someone who was born around that time is here, so he knows what happened.
Definitely.
Yes, Augustus Etienne, good morning.
Good morning, Ivan, and good morning to your listeners. Yes, I was born by that time, but at the time I was not as exposed.
Yes.
I was not as exposed as I was now.
Yes.
Living in the country at the time, I was hearing of the events on the radio, but probably I wasn't even familiar with Roseau at the time yet.
Oh, yeah?
I was still a country bookie.
Oh, you were? I thought you were born in Roseau.
No.
Okay.
I was born in, Prince PMH, but I was brought up in Dubic, actually.
Dubic? Okay.
Yes,
Wow.
yes.
Right.
And at the time that was happening, I was at Dubic.
Okay. All right.
And we were not as exposed as we may be now. Yeah.
Okay.
But from over the course of the years, I mean, I remember certain things that happened, and yeah.
And Dubic was a safe place for you at that time?
It was as a young child, it was.
Okay. All right. You're having a happy Thursday so far?
Yes, indeed.
Right,
Thank
good.
God. Yes.
All right. So there are quite a few things we want to discuss. I was looking at your Facebook page and I was like, wow, I mean, the Social Security is always on point when it comes to promoting, when it comes to education, when it comes to discussing, when it comes to, just giving out the information that people need.
Yes.
So I like the flyer. I like the setup, You capture a lot in the flyer, yet it's how I'd say it now. It's not overloaded.
Yes.
Like less is more.
Yes.
But you have to be careful how you design
Thanks
the
to
flyer. So
Mrs.
that's
Lloyd.
good. I
Thanks to
like
Mrs.
it.
Lloyd.
So while it captures everything, it doesn't look like,
It's too much, yes.
Yes, jumble up or something like that. So I really like it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, okay. So yes, there are quite a few things that we want to discuss this morning. So we'll open up the lines for your contribution as well. People who are listening, I know normally when the Social Security is on, we have a lot of calls, we have a lot of concerns, comments, suggestions, clarifications, commendations, and the likes. So let's talk Social Security, and we want to continue with the conversation on benefits, right?
Yes.
Yes.
We've been speaking about survivors' benefit for a couple previous programs because it's one of the benefits that is very involved. It have a lot of different conditions that have to be satisfied depending on the particular situation of the survivors who are claiming the benefit at the time of the death of the insured person. So it is one that is very involved. It is one that you cannot necessarily just speak to and say that is what is going to apply to every situation. Every case has to be treated on its merit.
On its merit, yeah.
And so we need to speak about the different conditions and so on.
So we'll focus on pension, grants, qualifying conditions, things
Yes.
like that, the benefit conditions itself, and making a claim and much more.
Yes.
I know we have...
And we also want to take the opportunity to remind people of the existence or the availability of the student loan facility. Given the time we are at the end of the academic year, when people are transitioning from one stage to another, to remind them of the existence, the availability of the student loan program for those who are going on to tertiary education.
Tell us about it. I know this is not the focus of the discussion, but it's important that we talk about it. So
yes.
Let us just go through it a little now, and even at the end of the program, for us to bring it back again.
So to say that for the last maybe about 11, 12 years or so, the board had allocated a certain amount of money from its investable funds for on-lending to persons who are interested in pursuing tertiary level education. So we have a student loan program at our office where members of Social Security or children of members, or we like to call them contributors themselves or children of contributors can apply for financing from Social Security to pursue tertiary level education at the State College, with we open campus, or anywhere overseas, online, regionally, locally, internationally. We have different conditions. Our interest rate is 5.99% per month annually on the reducing balance. The maximum repayment period is 15 years. The particular security will be required to provide will depend on the amount of money that you're requesting, and there is no limit to what you can access. What determines your ability to access an amount is whether you can afford to service it within the time period, 15 years. And again, depending on the particular program you are studying, because some programs are more costly than others. Medicine, for example, would cost you how many thousands of dollars, whereas a management degree might just cost you maybe about $40,000-$50,000, that kind of thing. So everything is based again on the particular situation, but that the facilities are available, and there are certain things that you have to provide. You obviously have to have acceptance from the institution. The institution must be accredited, and we have to verify that with the Ministry of Education. You have to provide us with the invoice, the schedule of the fees that you're required to pay, and also when you apply, you have to apply for the full cost of the program, whether you need it or not. Because we cannot just give you for the first year and then you have to figure out what you're going to do, because we're not helping ourselves. We have to finance your completion of the program and different things like that.
All right, so you have to carry out some due diligence somewhat.
Yes, indeed, yeah.
Because we are fly-by-night universities. And
Yes,
you
yes,
have to be careful as to, how much money you give someone. And next thing, you find out that, the university is not accredited.
Indeed,
so
but we not get, but the person would have shortchanged themselves in the process.
Well, yeah.
They spent money hoping to get something. And at the end of it, they get nothing, or even if they get something, it cannot stand anywhere. And that would be unfortunate.
In reference to people asking questions, in reference to people wanting to take part in the student loan facility, do you find this like increasing over the years, or
it varies, but what I'm saying is we're talking about it now because, as we say, we're approaching the end of the academic year, and people might be, those students who are graduating from high school, for example, might be looking at college or even just going on overseas right away.
Yeah.
So it is an important time for us to remind them. And
so very soon we should have a specific program on this.
Yes, actually we probably will next month. We probably will. Yes,
okay.
God willing.
All right. So let us look at the survivors' benefits. I know we started discussion on this. We have brought it up already. It's always a very interesting discussion. A lot of people want to know more about this. So let us look at it again. Yeah. Let us look at things like the formula you use, to arrive at the figure or the amounts that the dependent will receive, things like that. Let us look at the survivors' benefits.
Okay, so survivors is one of the several benefits that Social Security provides. And I like to say all of the benefits that we provide are triggered by certain specific events. In the case of survivors, it is triggered by the death of an insured person, somebody who is registered and paying contributions, who passes on and leaves behind dependents. Dependents under the law are a spouse, children, under the age of 21 who are unemployed, unmarried, and at school, or you can have an invalid child or a disabled child, a child who was born physically and mentally challenged and probably never went to school, never left the house. So irrespective of the age of that disabled child, that child would qualify for the survivor's benefit. And if an insured person passes and leaves behind neither a spouse nor children who can qualify, but they have a parent or grandparent above the age of 65 who was dependent upon him or her while they were there, that parent or grandparent can get survivor's benefit.
So you not having a child or not being married doesn't prevent you from, or prevent your family, because you would have someone.
Yes,
who
but
could-
it has to be a parent or grandparent above the age of 65. Yeah, and when we speak of married incidentally, we're not just talking of people who are legally married. Our law recognizes people in
common law
relationships. You have to be in a relationship for at least 3 years for the person to be considered a common law spouse.
Was it always 3 years? Was there a change? I think 3 years is
3 years has been the norm.
wow.
3 years has been the norm.
3
Yes.
years.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So to note, Ivona, it's not a visiting relationship, eh?
Say that again.
To note, it should not be a visiting relationship, because we know there are common law relationships where people visit, they don't live together. So in order for the person to be able to qualify for survivors, it has to be a common law relationship where you live together as if you're a husband and wife, but in common law for not less than 3 years.
How do you verify this, though? What mechanisms are in place to
So the
ensure?
person would have to provide us with a letter from a justice of the peace or a notary or a lawyer certifying that they are indeed in that relationship. And of course, the person who is signing that letter on their behalf have to have known that those persons were living together as man and wife. So it cannot be that you just go to a lawyer in town to get that letter for you. The person who is certifying it has to have known you to be living together as man and wife for not less than 3 years.
Interesting.
Yes.
So what if you're not satisfied, though, with the responses that you get from that?
Well, Dominica is a small society, eh?
And
Dominica
we
is a
do
small
our own
society.
investigations to Ivona.
Yes.
So where we find that probably something is not what it actually should be, we can have an investigation done.
And it has to be
determine
3
whether-
consecutive years.
Say
Or
that again?
it has to be 3 consecutive years, or
3
Yes,
3 years by the
yes.
time the person passes.
Yep.
Also, when a child is born and we pay the maternity grant, where we can use the father's. Well, I don't want to say fathers, no. I need to say the husband to make the distinction that it is a person who is in a particular relationship, and that if a child is born from a one-night stand, for example, the man may be the child's father, but because there is not that established relationship, if the woman is not contributing or has not contributed long enough, whereas for a person who is in an established relationship, the man can claim for the grant, the maternity grant. In the case of a one-night stand or a relationship that just begun and a child came as a result of that, they will not be able to access that benefit because you have to be in an established relationship. And the period of establishment is deemed to be at least 3 years.
what if they cannot live together for some reason or other? And I'm asking that because someone sent me a question or some information via WhatsApp. So the person is asking, let me see if I can make sense out of it. The person is saying that, essentially what I'm getting from what the person is saying is that she was living together with her child's father, and then Hurricane Maria came, and because they had lost their house, they had to separate. But he died after. He died maybe about 2 years after.
2 days after the
2
hurricane.
years, about 2 years after. But they were living together for some time.
But if they're in a relationship and their house got whatever, wherever they move to, they're living together still, you know.
No. That's what she's saying, that they were not living together for some time because their house was destroyed. And if she's typing, it looks like she was living with some family member. So I'll get the gist of it, the rest of it. But what I'm getting from her essentially.
But you
is
see, everything has to be at a specific point in time, and the point in time that we are looking at is at the time of death. What was your situation? Were you living together? Were you being wholly maintained by the person? If not, that can create a problem. At the time of death, you could have been living for 20 years together. At the time of death, you separated for some reason or another. except if the time of death is, okay, you were living together, you fall sick, you go to the hospital probably, and you died at the hospital, or after you came back from the hospital because of the condition of the other person, whatever, and the person died shortly thereafter, you could say it was because of the illness and the period of recuperation after the illness or whatever, that at the point of death, the person was not in the same home with you, but the person left your home and went to the hospital, that kind of thing. You know, so it's at the point of death, you have to assess what is the situation.
Okay. All right. So you could call us 1-800-327-448-3284 as we continue with the discussion. We want to look at survivors' benefits. In fact, we have started looking at survivors' benefits. There may be a question that you have or a concern, and you could call us. And of course, the officials are here, and they will answer you. So let us look at making a claim. How do you go about making a claim?
Okay, so to make a claim, Ivona, first of all, there must have been a death of the insured person who was contributing to Social Security. And the person who is making the claim, the claimant, would either be the dependents, would have to be a dependent of that deceased insured person. So it could be the spouse, as we mentioned, spouse meaning married or in a common law relationship for not less than 3 years, dependent children who are under the age of 21, unmarried, unemployed, and at school, or in the absence of those persons, a parent or grandparent who was over the age of 65. So what we would need would be a completed survivor's benefit application form. That form is available at our office or on our website. It would have to be completed. The person would have to submit documentation along with that completed form, and the documentation would include the death certificates of the person who died or the death card where the death certificate is not available, birth certificate for each of the claimants, Social Security card if available, a marriage certificate for the spouse particularly. We need to have a marriage certificate, and those documents must be original documents. Where the person was not married, as we say in a common law relationship, they would have to present that document from the Justice of the Peace, notary or lawyer, who would certify that, yes, they were in a relationship, living together as man and wife for a period not less than 3 years. And the person would come into the office with all of those documents, and then following that, the processing of the claim would begin.
Does it have to be like within the period of the death? Oh, okay, let me say some like before burial. So someone can come maybe a year after or months after and tell you that they did not know, they wasn't aware and all of that.
So the law makes provision for time within which claims have to be made for particular benefits. And most of those benefits would have a 3 month period. The ideal time would be to apply within 3 months of the death. If you apply within 3 months, you're okay. If you apply 4 months, you have to write a letter of excuse. If you apply, let's say, more than a year late, and there was entitlement because the person who died had sufficient contributions for you to qualify, we would start paying you 1 year prior to the date of claim. So you're supposed to make the claim within 3 months of the death. You make it in that time, you get paid from the date of death. You make that claim even within 1 year of the date of death, the claim would be paid from the date of death. If more than a period of more than 1 year has elapsed by the time we receive the claim, you will have lost some benefit because we cannot go back to the date of death. We will go back 1 year prior to the date on which you make the claim. So if you come 1 year, 1 month late, you will have lost 1 month of benefit. As I said, if you come within 1 year, we'll still pay you from the date of death once you provide us with a valid excuse. And the excuse can be almost anything. We do no hard and fast rule as to what the excuse has to be. It might be ignorance. It might be I was out of state. I was waiting to get that document for me to submit my claim, whatever. But even if sometimes it's better to submit a claim and miss documents than to wait to get everything and then you claim it. Because if you make the claim on time and we wait for the missing documents, the claim was made on time, you'll be entitled from the due date, from the date of death. But if you wait to get all documents, for example, if you have to wait for something from overseas, and you get it after a year passes, you might lose some of the benefit.
But to receive a claim, you must have the supporting document.
Indeed, yes. Claim have to be supported. And as Mrs. Lloyd said, the most important document is the certificate, the death certificate or the death card, because that is proof that the person has died. That is proof that the person. And then you want proof of the relationship as well. For the children, you need the above certificate.
So that's for the proof of the relationship. That's where you go to the
you need the marriage certificate or the letter from the Justice of Peace or Notary Public. Okay. Yes. You can present an affidavit, but an affidavit is not as bona fide, because if I come and I swear to an affidavit, is what I tell you put on it. But if I live in the community and I can vouch that I have known these people to be living together for how many years, that's you're doing it from a position of knowledge as opposed to the person told me. So yes, they can go and swear to an affidavit, and we can accept that to happen, but it's better if they can get it from a person resident in the community who can vouch for the fact that they've been living together.
Do you get the... yeah, go ahead.
And if I was about to add, if the person is applying from overseas, then the documents would have to be notarized. So they don't necessarily have to wait to come to Dominica to submit the application. They can do that from wherever they are, but all the documentation they are submitting to us have to be notarized.
Even if that one of the documents is a Dominican document, like you have a Dominican birth certificate with you where you are, and you send it from the state, from wherever, we need to get that notarized. Yes.
So your supporting documents is crucial.
Yes, indeed.
So and documents can also be emailed to us.
Yes,
to the office, scan an email and submit it to us.
Okay. Do you get a feeling that a lot of people are aware of this?
We hope so. We hope so. Yeah, but you also have people who are concerned people in the communities who sometimes will intervene on behalf of the person if the person apparently doesn't know. And they will say, but I think that person used to be working so and so. Just check in because their family is really destitute. I want to find out if there's anything they can get. And then when we check the system, we might see that, yes, that person was working and paying, and they have some confidence that the family can qualify for something. So,
interesting.
And what happens sometimes when we go out to meet with persons as well, somebody who may be in the forum that we are would say, but so-and-so died or whatever, and then they would be inquiring whether that person would have qualified for benefits. So persons get to know of that at those forums as well and inquire on behalf of other people who may they know that may qualify for that benefits.
All right, let us look at the pension for the dependent children. What if the child, if say the person who died has a child who is below the age of 18? What happens?
Okay. So the age has changed over time. The starting age for coverage under Social Security is 16. Anybody who is under 16 is not yet eligible for coverage under Social Security. It's not insurable. So at some point, it used to be you would have had your parent would have had to die while you were under 16. You start getting paid, and if you still at school, you paid you up to 18. And then we go up to 21. I'm saying the original age was up to age 16 because that's the compulsory school age. Under 16, you must be at school. Between above 16, you can start working. So that was the original. So at some point, the child would have had to be under 16 at the time of the parent's death. We will start paying you. And if it is in payment and you're still at school, we would go and pay you until 18. And the age has now gone up to 21. But you have to be unemployed, you have to be unmarried and at school. Because when you become 18, you're an adult. You will always be your parent's child. But if you are a working adult at 18, you're not dependent on your parent when your parent is dead. Right? Because you are working and earning your own salary and you should be making your own contributions to Social Security. You will always be your parent's child, but you will not be a dependent child at that time. So you have situations where we can be paying one person's child up to age 21 and another person who is 18, we will not pay them because the 18-year-old might be working. But the 21-year-old is still at school, unemployed, unmarried. Is that making sense? We can pay some children up to 21, but we will not pay a child at 17, 18 because the child at 17, 18, their situation is different. The child might be working already. The child might be...
So you look at every situation in its own merit.
On its own merit. If the child is living in common law union with another partner at 17, 18, and your parent dies, you are your parent's child, but the fact that you're shacking up with somebody, the person you're shacking up with is responsible for you, not your parent anymore. If you have children already of your own at 18, you're not dependent on your parent again. You now have children that you are responsible for taking care of. So all of those things can affect your ability to access the benefit.
You want to say something, Kamasha?
No,
Okay.
I was just nodding in agreement, if I'm mistaken.
Let us go through again. Let us look at the funeral, the in terms of the funeral grant. Let us look at the formula.
Survivor's grant, you mean?
The survivor's grant.
Survivor's
The first
grant?
survivor's grant, right?
Okay.
Let us look at the formula used to arrive at the figure or the amounts that the dependent will receive. How is this computation
Okay,
done?
so Social Security provides benefits. Well, long-term benefits we're talking about pension. We're talking about long-term benefits. So the pension is always better than the grant. The grant only comes into play when the person does not have sufficient contributions to qualify for the pension. In fact, some people ask us, why don't we get a lump sum? Give me a lump sum. Because they figure the lump sum might be a bigger amount. It might sound like a big amount.
And it may not necessarily be.
It isn't, because, trust me, a pension for 20, 30 years adds up to way more than you would get 30,000 grand up front. But over the rest of your life, you can receive hundreds of thousands of dollars. It accumulates over time. So the option for the grant is not something that you can opt for. It has to be because you fall short of the required number of contributions to qualify for the pension for you to get the grant. So to qualify for a survivor's pension, the deceased person must have either been in receipt of a pension already or have satisfied the condition to receive at least an invalidity pension, because a person who is not yet of age, pensionable, could be entitled to an invalidity pension if the person became invalid before they attained their 60th birthday. So we're using that minimum condition for invalidity pension as the basis for a person accessing survivor's benefit, because you're saying a person can die young before they reach 60, and if they did not die, but at the time they died, they could have qualified for invalidity, then you use the invalidity pension that the person would have been entitled to as the base to determine what is available for distribution among the dependents. So to qualify for that invalidity, you just need to have paid contributions for at least 3 years, to have accumulated between about 150 credits, which is just 3 years of contributions.
150 credits?
Yes, 3 years, 150. So if the deceased person had accumulated 150 credits by the time they died, and that person is under 60, their dependents would be eligible to receive a survivor's pension, a pension that would be paid for an extended period of time. If the spouse is above 50 at the time of death, the surviving spouse, that is, that pension to the spouse would be paid for the remainder of his or her life, except if he or she remarries or cohabitates. Yes? So your husband died, you are 51 years old. At the time of death, you are living together, whatever, you're entitled to that survivor's pension for the rest of your life, except if at some point down the road you decide, I cannot stay by myself again, I need a companion, you remarry, or you start living together in common law union with another person, that benefit will stop.
Stick up in there, because I want to go back to this.
Yes.
We have someone on the line. Hello? Hello? Okay, that person will have to call us back. Okay, let's take this call again. Okay, we lost that caller. Yes,
Yes.
let's continue with
So
what you were
if
saying
in
on
that
this.
same situation, the surviving spouse is under the age of 50 at the time of death,
On the
date of death, the pension is ordinarily payable to that surviving spouse for 1 year, because it is presumed that because the surviving spouse is under the age of 50 on the date that their partner dies,
Okay.
that pension is ordinarily payable to that surviving spouse for 1 year.
Will you take into consideration a case where there's just 2 more days for that person?
Everything, yeah, good question. Everything is at the material time, and the material time is the date on which the event takes place. The event has to be death. I made a joke with somebody some years ago. Her husband died 1 month before she was 50. And we started paying her, and so we should have paid her for just 1 year. But there is a caveat on that even if you're entitled to it for 1 year, but you have children that you share with your deceased spouse taken care of, we will continue to pay you for as long as the children remain in your care and the children remain dependent. So the payment to you as the spouse who is under 50 at the time of death is ordinary or normally payable to you for 1 year. But if you have a child or children taken care of that you shared with your husband, that payment will continue as long as you're taking care of those children.
And it's periodical payments.
Yes, the pension. The pension is every fortnight or every month for a certain number of years. For life, if you're above 50, for 1 year if you're under 50, or if you take under 50 and taking care of children, as long as the youngest child is in your care. So that by the time your youngest child come of age, you will be older than 50. But we will not continue to pay you after we stop paying your youngest child, because at the time of death, you were not 50. And the lady I went to joke with and tell her, I told her husband should have waited for you to turn 50 before he died, for you to get for the rest of your life. She got paid for an extended period of time until her child came of age, and the benefit stopped after she had gotten it for a number of years. She said, but I almost 60 now, I'll stop in my benefit. But the point of reference was the date of death. You were not entitled to it for life. You were only entitled to it for as long as the child was in your care. When the child come of age and the child stopped getting the benefit, you stop.
Any recent adjustment to this? I know every 3 years there's an actuarial review.
Not immediate, but they're stuck on the horizon for making changes going forward to sort of make the conditions more relevant or specific to family condition, as opposed to just those general kind of whatever that was based on certain things and not necessarily reflecting the family's actual condition. So down the road, it's possible that some of those things will change.
And just to note, Ivona, when we speak of children, we speak of all children of the deceased person. So whether they have children outside or they have children with other partners, all of those children, once they are within the specified age group, under 21, unemployed, unmarried and at school, a claim can be made on behalf of those dependent children.
All right. 1-800-327-448-3284, 448-3281, 448-3279. We are talking social security. We are looking at a very important discussion there today. And we open up the lines. We're looking at survivors' benefits. And this is important. And we are spending some time on survivors' benefits. We focus on pension, as we said, on grants as well. Yeah. We're looking at the qualifying conditions, what you need to do, what you need to know as well, the benefit conditions, and how you go about making a claim. And of course, there are a lot of areas as well we want to continue to cover as we go along.
So we do not speak of pension or grants. We speak of benefit, and a person makes an application for benefit because somebody of theirs have died. At the time they make the claim, they don't know what they're going to qualify for, whether pension or grant. It is when we check the person's history, we make the determination that based on the person's contribution history, what you qualify for is a pension or a grant.
Okay, so let's go through this again.
Yes.
Let's go through this again.
So we're speaking of survivors' benefits, which is triggered by the death of an insured person, right? So an insured person has died, leave dependents behind. Those dependents are entitled to a survivor's benefit. What is the benefit? We don't know.
So it becomes a pension or a grant,
right?
After.
Based on the number, the person's recorded contributions on file. If you have the minimum of 150, a pension is payable. If you have less than 150, a grant is payable. Now, again, we have to. It is a pension that is to be divided among the eligible dependents. Again, based on the age of the deceased person at the time of death, will determine what pension you're looking at. Is it invalidity because you were under 60, or is it age because you are above 60 and you would have qualified for a reduced age, or you're above 65 and you've been getting your pension for a number of years? Because sometimes when a deceased person dies, they are in receipt of a pension already. Right? So if you retired, if you become pensionable, when you become pensionable at 65 and you die at 75, and you're receiving a pension at 75, there is a pension in payment. So all we do when you die, the pension that you were receiving at the time you were in receipt of at the time of your death is distributed among your eligible dependents. You don't have to determine what pension you have to share. It is known because it was in payment already. If the person had not gotten to age 65 or even 60 and the person died, we would determine that if that person did not die before turning 60 but had been declared invalid, what invalid the pension they would have qualified for. We calculate that pension based on the pension formula, and that pension that the person would have been entitled to is what now has to be distributed among their dependents. If you're not entitled to a pension, invalidity or age, but it's a grant you would be entitled to, we calculate what the grant would have been and we distribute the grant among the dependents. The distribution is half of the amount that's payable to the spouse, and the other half is distributed among the children. Each of them get a quarter. If it's a parent or grandparent that qualifies in the absence of spouse and or children, they qualify for half of the pension that's payable. Yes?
Is there somewhere else, apart from, of course, the radio discussion, that people can get this information, like a breakdown, or maybe they can go on the internet, or is there a brochure or something that, apart from we discussing this?
Well, we have these
you
booklets that talk about all the benefits, qualifying conditions, and calculation and all of that. Eventually, people will probably be able to go onto our system and do an estimated pension calculation, but that's something for down the road. It is something that will come with our new IT system, where they will have access to. They will go online and they might be able to just select an app, pension estimate calculator, and then it will probably give them an idea what their thing would be based on their records on file.
But
now
also, too, I want to, without tripping in mistaken, also, too, they can go to our website. We have a website, www.dss.dm, where we have, the information is not exhaustive, but we have some information on all the benefits that Social Security offers to contributors. And, of course, if they need any further clarification on anything, they can always contact the office.
Yeah, they can come to us and then we can look at it and actually show them the calculation. Because in the case where people are considering applying for early age pension, we encourage them to come. Let us look at your record and tell you exactly what it's going to mean for you if you take your pension now, if you take it 6 months later, a year later, what have you. So when you're making the decision, you're making an informed decision, understanding the implications of your choice to apply for early age pension. So as a last resort, they can always come to the office for us to explain and show them the calculation.
But the information is out.
But eventually they might be able to go online and be able to do that. But it's not currently available online.
Okay. The Dominica Social Security we are discussing. Let's listen to Dice on the DSS.
Secure yourself, secure your family. Register with Social Security. Make sure your employers pay, cause some of them do melee. Make sure they pay your Social Security. Secure your age pension when you're old. Invalidity pension when health has left you cold. Survivor's pension secure for your spouse and your children. Life and health above unpredictable. Don't take risk. You can't afford to gamble. Secure yourself with Social Security. I said that. Social Security. It good, you know.
Too often, customers are counted but not valued, like mere numbers, statistics, transactions. But at Flow, we're prioritizing you, our valued customers who have been with us through every milestone, every moment. That's why we're putting our money where your loyalty is. Flow customers claim up to $400 in rewards for smartphones, groceries, and more when you add mobile to your current internet plan. Because loyalty isn't a one-way street. At Flow, loyalty flows both ways.
Here's a fun fact. In just 29 seconds, you can say goodbye to paper bills forever. Seriously, in 29 seconds. That's less time than this ad. Head over to discoverflow.co or visit us in-store and update your contact information now. By October 1st, your bills will be digital, easy to access, secure, and hassle-free. So what are you waiting for? This ad still has 2 seconds left, and you could have already gone paperless.
Okay, so I'm looking online at the survivor's benefit form. Very interesting. I hereby apply for survivor's benefit, and of course it continues. I did not go through it in its entirety, but I'm sure it's a simple form, right? Nothing complicated, or is it?
Not complicated, just has a lot of different sections because it requires a lot of information about different. So you can have a situation where the parent or the deceased, the surviving spouse is applying for himself, herself, and how many children who are underage. So they have to put their particulars, the particulars of the deceased person, the particulars of each child who would be eligible.
So you have to put, all the information for each
So it
claimant.
might look like a very lengthy form, but it's because it makes room for you to list several children if they are eligible for the pension.
Okay, interesting. Let's see if this person wants to share. I'm not sure what is wrong with online, but Okay.
Phone is strange, we don't get
Yeah.
calls, yeah.
Yes. I don't know. We have been getting them, but they're not coming
They're
on.
not coming through.
Yeah, something is happening. But anyway, okay. Before we leave, I'm looking at the time. Before we leave, though, we want to look at the again, just to mention the for the student loan facility.
Mhm.
I want to go on this a little. I know we want to have this in the next program, as you mentioned.
Yeah, we'll probably
We want to
focus on that.
want to look at it in the next program, but it's a good time to look at it now, even now as
Indeed,
well.
indeed,
So,
yes.
So this has been around for quite a few years now. A lot of
Yes,
people are
yes.
still not aware that Dominica Social Security is
They're
part
not,
of this.
they're not. And you have situations people make inquiries and they do not actually work for, because sometimes I guess maybe one of the things is when when you're taking a loan in excess of $20,000, you have to provide as security a certificate of title, but it has to be unencumbered. It needs to be a free certificate of title. It mustn't be another institution mustn't have a lien on it. It needs to be clear so that we have full access to it. So if you have your part of your mortgage, is still your little title, is still the bank will pay in your mortgage, you will not be able to use that certificate of title because you want tax lien. So that can be a challenge for some people.
I was just about to say that, because
Yes.
for a lot of people that's the case.
Right. But everything depends on your particular situation. You need under 20,000 and under, we need two guarantors, one of whom has to be servicing the interest payments while you study. You can guarantee the loan for yourself if you are here working, or a parent can do it.
But in that case, can you look at every situation its own merits?
But yes, certainly.
Because
It
you
always
meant-
is. It always is on its own merit.
Do you have the leeway to do this? Because as I said earlier, it is a review that's done every 3 years. Could you maybe make adjustments even within that time frame?
Depending on, yes. Nothing is set in stone, Nothing is set in stone. If there becomes a situation where people are having that particular difficulty to satisfy that particular condition, the board can always review that requirement.
Okay.
And
Because I'm just thinking this could be hindering probably
Yes.
people from coming forward, more people that is, from coming forward to take up this facility at the Dominica
Yeah.
Social Security.
And while that is true, Ivona, too, we have to be careful with how we, in terms of our conditions, because we have to recognize that the funds that are used to finance those facilities are basically what we would refer to as trust funds, payments made by contributors that we use as a form of investment to generate more income for the fund. So we have to be careful in how the conditions, because we have to ensure that the persons who receive those loans are able to pay back and service those loans.
Yeah. We have to ensure that those loans are secured.
Yes.
And you have situations people have in the past where they figure is my money. I put social security, my money in social security, or they owe me benefits, so whatever. So why you cannot use my benefit as to secure my loan? But you don't have any benefit yet until something happens to you. You have access to benefits, but when something happens to you. But it is not just your money, it is all of us money that is in the fund that we're using to lend, so it has to be secured. And some people used to be of the impression that because they have contribution in the system, whether they pay back or not, they have their money there. No, it is all of us money in the pool for the benefit of all of us down the road. So when we unlend it for this purpose, we have to ensure it is secure, and we need to make interest on it as well. And that is why we have those various conditions. They mustn't find it onerous, they mustn't figure, because they're making the contribution, they should automatically access it, no questions asked. It still has to be secured, because you take in money, and maybe, all of us contributing, and our contributions may be relative, but you come and you take a loan of $100,000 and you don't pay it back. The system is deprived of the interest. The system is deprived of the $100,000 that was unlent. You have to get benefit, other people have to get a benefit, but you're affecting the ability of the system to be able to deliver. So we need to recognize and take responsibility. So when we do those things, we have to honor our obligations to ensure that all of us can get what is rightfully ours when our time comes.
So if the loan is over $20,000,
you may need to have a certificate of title, or you might have to pledge a certificate of deposit, like a fixed deposit certificate. And the value of the security has to be 1.2 times, or 1 1/5 times the amount of the loan. And the reason why we want it to be the value of the security to be 1.2 times the value of the loan is that if you have a situation where the person defaults on the loan and we have to liquidate the security, you have to make allowance for time, you have to make allowance for the fact that you may not get the full value of the thing because you might force sale it to get the money, and then you still want to be able to recover the amount that would be owing on the loan.
So the loan would cover tuition and fees,
Tuition,
I guess, living
fees,
expenses.
Yes, books and yeah.
Computer, if you need to purchase a computer, if you need to purchase books,
Yes.
your living or personal expenses that is directly related
To your
to your
studies.
Covered by
studies,
that
and
one.
of course tuition and fees.
Okay, let's see if this international line will work. Hello? Yes.
Hello.
Yes, good day.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning,
And
caller.
how are you?
Fine, thank you.
Morning to your guests.
Good
Morning,
Good
morning.
morning, caller.
Now, Mr. Augustus, let me ask you now, what about people now who are right here and are working and are owing this Social Security? What is it that is put in place to recover the loan that they had taken to go and study? Because you mentioned earlier on, and I got to mention that, we're living in a small community where everybody know everybody. But I have to send my picture talking live to somebody to certify that I'm alive where I am there right now for me to continue to get what I'm getting.
Your
So what
pension.
is it that the Social Security is doing for people who are not paying up to their loan? Thank you very much.
Okay, we do not have, well, so far with this facility, we have not had much problem with people servicing their loans, because at the time you apply, as I said, somebody has to be servicing the interest payments while you're studying. Because if you do not pay the interest is going to get added to the loan, capitalized, and you're going to be paying interest on interest. So to sort of allow you to just pay interest on the amount that you borrow, we service the interest payments while you're studying, and after you complete your studies, you're supposed to service the entire loan, paying an amount that goes towards both principal and interest. And if the person is working here, person is studying here locally, studying online, they can actually service the entire loan as they go along. Every month pay a little something. Now, some of the documents that they have to sign is they have to sign salary deduction authorizations, so that when they start working, we will effect the salary authorization, so that they will get that salary deduction from their employer, from their salary every month. So we haven't had much difficulty, much challenge with that so far. But if the person doesn't honor their obligations over time, we will have to resort to realizing the security, selling the property, cashing the fixed deposit. Again, they go after the guarantors. If two guarantors we have, go after them to pay the loan, because they would have signed undertaking to do that.
And that could be a costly undertaking for the DSS as well.
It can be, yes.
And it could be
And if you're concerned, if you let's say you were to have pledged your parents' property as security, you better, after they do what they do for you, don't just stay in the US, have a lavish life, forget about them. Those service loan, let them lose their little house. And it takes a little while for you to realize the security as well, and that's why I'm saying the value of the security has to be 1.2 times the value of the loan, because if you try to put a property for sale, the property might be worth a certain amount, but the loan was a certain amount as well. And if you try to sell it for the actual value and you first sell it and you don't get the full thing, you might not have enough to recover the loan. So that is why it has to be done like that.
So what if the loan is less than $20,000? Someone wants a loan for less than $1,000. It's already supporting the documents that they have to present. It's less than
the two guarantors would suffice as the security.
Two guarantors.
Two guarantors, yes, with good financial standing. Again, one of whom has to service the interest payments while the student is studying.
Yes, Kamasha, do you often get questions on this, the loan facility?
Not so much, Ivona, and that is why every opportunity we get to say, like, now, we know what most students
because
are
I was really hoping
school.
for yes. I was really hoping for yes, because I know we have discussed this in the past.
Yes,
so
those opportunities there, we get to discuss it. And as well, sometimes we're invited by this Dominica State College to have a session with students to inform them about the facility, as well as the University of the West Indies also invites us sometimes when they have new students coming in, also on orientation sessions to speak to them about it.
You have special officers at DSS attached to that particular...
Well, yes.
It's the accounting department.
The accounting department. So Mrs. Lloyd may not necessarily be getting the inquiries directly. They might be going directly to the accounting department.
For inquiries. Right. And again, if anybody's listening and they want more information on the student loan, they could call the office. The number is 255-8327 or 255-8328. They can call to get more information about the student loan facility. But before we close, Ivona, I think one thing that we didn't mention in relation to the survivors' benefits is for persons who are missing at sea. If somebody
Oh,
goes
yes.
missing at sea,
I remember last discussion we had on this.
yes,
We
and
looked at,
somebody
yeah.
needs to make a claim, we encourage them to report that to us as soon as the disappearance occurs. You need to report it to Social Security. We understand that you will not have all the necessary documentation because you will have to wait at least 7 years for the person to be officially declared dead. But once that report is made to us from day one has elapsed, after the 7 days has elapsed, then we can go back and initiate payments of the claim from the date of such disappearance. And it is important to know that you would need to bring to us the official report from the police indicating that the person is officially declared dead and also at the time that you are making the claim. Because what may happen is that you may wait until the 7 years has elapsed to make that claim, and we can only go back to pay you 1 year.
Prior to
1 year prior to the
date of claim.
the date
So
of
the
your
claim has been made within.
So the ideal thing, as soon as the person disappears, you make the report to the police that my person went to sea whenever and has not returned. We're conducting searches, we're doing whatever calling matnik to help with whatever, and we're still waiting. But the person has gone out and has not returned.
Yep.
You made the report to the police, you file a claim with Social Security because the person is deemed to have disappeared. Presumably dead, we don't know yet. But under the law, a period of 7 years after elapsed before a person can be officially deemed dead. Because it's not uncommon for the person to be somewhere in another country. In another country, you don't hear it from them, so you don't know what their condition or situation is. And lo and behold, when you think they're dead, they're just appearing on you, giving you fall foot and you yourself.
In recent times, I've seen this on Facebook.
Yet in a heart attack because as far as you know, that person has died for many years and the person resurfaces in the flesh. But if the 7 years elapsed and the person has not been heard of or seen since, they declare them dead. And then the police will have said, well, 7 years ago you had said the person disappeared. 7 years has now elapsed, you can officially deem the person to have died. And then you come to Social Security. But having made your claim as soon as the person disappeared, again, we say that the claim becomes payable from the date of the specific event. If you disappeared 7 years ago and had declared dead, you would have been deemed dead for 7 years now. But you made your claim at the time of disappearance, so we would have 7 years payment to pay you, a backlog of 7 years payment if you made the claim on time. If you didn't make it at that time, we have to look at what point did you make the claim, and it is from the point you make the claim that we have to pay you going forward, but after the person is declared dead.
7 years.
Yes.
I still find it's a lot though.
Yeah,
because
but
I'm thinking, what
they're trying to avoid is that they don't say the person is dead.
No,
and
I agree,
Yes.
But then
the
probably
person
would have
just
made a claim, and
resurfaces.
even within that period, that person who made the claim could have died as well. So
that's possible.
Yeah, that's true.
That is possible. Good point. Now, again, if the claim was payable at the time of disappearance, and the person who made the claim subsequently died, the claim would have been payable to somebody. So the estate or the person, who has died. Let's say the person died by the time the claim was we're going to start paying the claim. The claim the entitlement would have been established at the time of disappearance, and the claim would have been paid. But it's just that you have to wait for the person to be officially declared dead. So somebody would be paid. The estate or the person would then have to be paid.
Estate or the person.
Yeah,
Interesting. All right. Okay, so before we end, let's just go through some pertinent points that were raised earlier again. Let's just take this caller quickly. Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
Hi.
Good morning, caller.
Morning, caller.
Hi, how are you doing?
Fine,
Okay,
fine,
thanks.
thank you.
I've been listening. I always listen when I have the time or I'm around. You mentioned something with regards to loan funding. However, you specific as it relates to studying, let us say, for a degree, let's say a PhD or something like that. But my question is, does Social Security have Social Security ever thought of funding like a program that's leaders, like the short-term programs? Have they ever thought of that? That would be my first question. And but before I go there, sometimes
You're talking about the short-term UE courses. I just want to get it clear.
courses,
Because
yes, the short-term
okay.
UE courses. Because have Social Security ever thought of assisting persons in that regard? That's my first question. And then you also mentioned the grant funding. So my understanding is when a person retires, they could either get their money on a monthly basis, and then there may be some grant aspect. So perhaps it could be a little clearer on the grant aspect of it, please.
Okay, you get that clear, Augustus and
Okay.
Commercial Lloyd? Okay, thank you.
Yes, put a little more focus on the grant
On the grant
funding.
funding. Okay.
It's not fund. It's not grant funding, eh?
Oh, grant,
Okay, yes. The grant as a benefit. Okay.
Grant benefits, grant benefits.
Okay.
As a benefit, yes. Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Yes,
All right.
okay. Can you just expound a little, please? Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks, caller, for that. The short-term you course you're talking about are the 6-week courses, those kind of things?
I guess, yes.
I
6
suppose
weeks,
that's what she's
8
referring
weeks,
to.
10 weeks courses that
They
you
normally
will-
offer it like during the summer.
Yes, yeah.
How much do those
It's
cost?
not that much.
It's not that-
Like
it's not that much.
$350
Yeah.
from what I know.
$600, something like that.
300,
So,
600, depends on
Yeah,
the time frame, yeah.
yeah,
it's
that's
not,
that's something you need a loan for.
yeah, it's much less than $1,000.
Yeah, it wouldn't. You wouldn't something you need a loan for.
And luckily for you as well, they also have installment.
Payment.
A payment plan.
Yes.
A payment
For
plan.
this
Yes.
program.
Yeah.
So I think those people who are doing the degree programs, yes, they need to they can
For
access
longer,
that money
period.
because when we do the orientation session for really for people who are doing the
Yes.
The bachelor's
the
also,
degree programs and so.
masters, yeah.
I find the short term courses the fee so minimal that you come to us to pay for a $6,000 or $1,000 loan and you pay that back in 3
It's
months.
not even
It's
all
not.
of that. All
yeah.
that. It's less than that.
It's less than that. Okay. So I was explaining that when a person applies for a benefit, because we're talking survivors, an insured person who is paying contributions or was paying contributions has died. The person leaves behind dependents. Dependents become entitled to a benefit by virtue of the fact that the deceased person had been making contributions. What benefit they will qualify for, we do not know because it depends on what the deceased person's contribution history would have been by the time they died. Each of the benefits have a requirement. So for survivors, we're saying that the minimum number of contributions a person need to have accumulated by the time of death for there to be entitlement to a pension, which is a fortnightly or monthly payment for an extended period of time. We need to have paid, or the person would need to have accumulated at least 150 weeks of contributions, which translates to 3 years of contributions. If the deceased person had made those 150 contributions or more, their dependents would be entitled to a periodic payment, fortnightly or monthly, for a period of time. I cannot say for life, I cannot say for 1 year. Everything is dependent on the age of the people who qualify for that benefit at the time. Where the deceased person would have accumulated less than 150 credits, we would not be able to pay a periodic payment for an extended period. We would have to pay a lump sum. And the lump sum is calculated. What we do is we take the 2 persons' total dollar value of contributions that they would have paid, not contributions, earnings. The total earnings on which they would have paid contributions while they were working and paying. Divide those earnings by the total number of weeks of contributions that you would have accumulated. Because for every month you pay, you get 4 or 5 weeks, or for every year you pay, you get 52 weeks. That is why we say the 150 weeks translates to 3 years. So if you have 149 weeks, you fall short of the 150 by 1 week. We would divide your total earnings that you earned while you were working, divided by 149. We will get an average, and we will multiply that. We will pay you 3 times that average for every block of 50 contributions that you would have made. So a person would have made 149 contributions. We would divide their total earnings by 149. We get an average. We'll multiply that average by 3 and pay you 3 times, well, that 3 times the average for every block of 50. How many block of 50 there would be in 149? Just 2. Because if you had made the 150, there would have been 3, but you would have qualified for the pension. Divide and pay you 2 times that, 3 times the average. That would be the grant, and we'll divide it among the dependents. For the age pension, the same thing happens. You fall short of 500 weeks. We take your total earnings that you would have paid contributions on while you were working, divided by your total number of credits, the 52 that we give you for every year you pay, and you get an average, and we pay you 3 times that average for every block of 50. So the person who would have paid 499 credits, they fall short of the 500 by 1. We would divide their total earnings by 499. We get an average, multiply by that 3, and pay you 3 times that average for every block of 50. That would be 9 9 blocks of 15, 499, and that would be the lump sum that you get, and that's the end of the story. So the person who died was approaching 65, and at 65 they would not have had 500 weeks. Is a grant they would have qualified for. We now have to calculate that grant and divide it among the dependents at that time.
Yeah, and that's how you arrive at that figure.
Yes.
To be shared among the dependents. Interesting. Well, we have come to the end already of the program. Very interesting again. I just, I never liked math at school, but most times when you all come, I have to do my computation myself.
I watch it, I see you enjoying that.
Try to arrive at my figure as well.
Yes,
but
yes.
you all have, I would say, Dominica Social Security, you are very passionate about educating the public, and I think this is very good.
Yeah.
This is very, very, very good. I mean, we get a lot of questions. Normally, we get a lot of questions. We want to know more.
Yeah.
And the interest is there. And I think
but we think people need to understand, because that way it will make our work easier ultimately, and more for people will come to avail themselves of the protection that we provide. Because if they don't know, it's steeped in secrecy, they might figure, but that scheme, that is this or that. But if they understand, and they may not think it is fair or it is everything they want it to be, but when they appreciate what it is.
Let's take this last caller quickly, quickly. Hi, good morning. Hello. Okay, we have a problem with this particular line. There seems to be a problem, because with this particular line. Anyway. Yes, but I look forward to next month's program. As we said, there are times we have to shift the Thursday.
Yes, it happens.
Thursday.
So we're always happy to come, and we're always happy that we can do this, because sometimes different things happen and it throw you off guard. Sometimes people are not available.
Yeah.
So,
and probably one of those days, depends on what we are talking, you can bring someone to testify, to give, the testimonial about.
But generally, when we hear people call to testify,
that happens. That happens
yes,
as well.
Yes.
That's true. Okay, so see you next month. God willing, all the best.
Willing.
Thank you, Ivona.
Thank you,
we look
as
forward
usual.
to being here again as usual.
All right, take care.
Thank you.
Too
Have a good
often,
day.
customers are counted but not valued, like mere numbers, statistics, transactions. But at Flow, we're prioritizing you.